For me, the past has always been kind of seductive. I love the music, the style, the energy. My whole life I've been the weird girl dressed in vintage thrifted clothes, listening to old music, watching old movies. But I realized from a pretty young age that we can dig through crates of old records, we can fill our closets with clothes that look like what would have been in our mother's closets. Let the whole aesthetic wash over us without question. But I also think it's very important to be careful, not to trivialize the experiences of the people who lived during those eras by latching on to a cultural moment without actually understanding what it stood for, or more importantly, what it ignored. We used to joke that my parents never moved past the 80s. My sister and I grew up just surrounded by things from the past. Things from the 70s, which we now call cherished vintage, which in the 90s were just old. It wasn't actually until I grew up and left my parents' house that I realized that most people didn't live the way that I lived. The cultures of the 60s and 70s came with incredible breakthroughs, but they also carried this immense weight of silence and exclusion, bigotry, discouragement. So if we want to celebrate the music and the look and the feeling of that time, it's important to be conscious of where those styles came from, what influenced that music. That's why I find context so important when I tell my stories. It's okay to love the art. For the love of God, it's okay to love the art. But loving it requires an understanding of the atmosphere in which it was produced, recognizing where those artists and the societies in which they lived fell short. Because without that understanding, there's a risk of accidentally glorifying ideas that never should have had the spotlight to begin with. We designed this shirt for our new merch collection. No images or styling to get in the way of the message. For clarity, as someone who still lives their life steeped in retro, but will never be the type of person to identify with those archaic values, it's always important for me to make the distinction. Because being alive in 2025, we have more information and more insight than we ever have before to curate the past instead of copy it. So now it's about celebrating that feeling of revolution, of self-expression, and the music and the art that exuded that, while avoiding the standards that kept some people on the outside looking in.